Hey, Justin, what's going on?
Hey, Ed. How are you? Thank you for having me on.
No problem, man. Thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedule for coming on the program. So let's get right to it. So you're the official DJ for Top Rank Boxing. We're going to get more into Top Rank in just a little bit. But growing up on the East Coast in Massachusetts, were you a fan? Were you a big boxing fan growing up?
I always love boxing. You know, out of all the sports out there, actually, it was probably one of my favorites. It's amazing that this happened the way that it did. You know, always been a fan. And then I came to Vegas. I was brought out to Vegas to DJ, you know, when Light opened up at Bellagio. And then I became Steve Wynn's music director over at Wynn. And Todd DeBuff used to come in all the time to the club. And he came up one day and asked if, you know, we could meet up and just talk about music. This is almost like 13 years ago. We came down to Top Rank and we talked about music. And I said, hey, Todd, you know, why don't you just have me there so I could kind of feel off the crowd? And he was just like, brilliant, let's do it. He's been amazing to work for since day one, you know, and really, really open to any kind of new ideas.
Awesome to hear. Now let's stay with your growing up, and you've always been a fan of the sport of boxing. Who were some of your favorite fighters coming up?
Oh my God! Obviously Mike Tyson. You know, I was a huge Mike Tyson fan growing up. But also I used to watch in the '70s too. So I remember watching Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler when I was growing up, Roberto Duran. But yeah, especially like during the '80s, Mike Tyson was the fighter, you know, and still to this day, probably my favorite heavyweight. You know, I know a lot of people would definitely argue with me about that one, but to me, you know, Tyson in his prime, there was nobody like.
Oh yeah, rightfully so. I'm old enough to remember when Mike first came on the scene, and they called him Kid Dynamite and the baddest man on the planet. And I mean, he wreaked havoc on that heavyweight division during the '80s and the early part of the '90s. So while you mentioned about your favorite fighters during the '70s and the '80s, what about currently? Who are some of your favorite fighters that you enjoy watching now?
Okay. I'm obviously a little. I'm being honest. You know, I'm a little favored towards Top Rank fighters. I'm just being honest, but they really do have the most exciting fighters to watch right now in the sport. You know, TysonFury is by far the most exciting. I think Lomachenko is probably the best boxer that I maybe have ever seen. I can honestly say that.
Now let's talk about your job. You are the official DJ for Top Rank Boxing. Your position is unique as well, DJing for a big time boxing promotion company. Tell our audience, for those that may not be familiar with your duties and what your responsibilities are as being the official DJ for Top Rank Boxing.
Okay. You know what? Since I started about probably it was 13 years ago, I think my first fight was Zab Judah, Miguel Cotto at Madison Square Garden. And that was the first one. Todd just wanted to try it out. And he said from the beginning, like, what should we do? And I said, honestly, just let me do my thing. And I'm going to play to the Puerto Rican crowd that we have here. And I'm going to play to the Brooklyn crowd that we have here. And I would go back and forth with the music, you know. And now it's basically my job is, you know, doing the walkout music, providing walkout music when the fighters don't have walkout music. Playing in between the rounds, entertaining the crowd, and that means also shifting it up with every single fight because, as you know, every crowd is completely different than the next. You know, sometimes we might have a little bit more of a Latino crowd, sometimes a little bit more of a black crowd, sometimes a different crowd, you know, in China. But the idea is really to pump the people in the stadium up. And the great thing about Top Rank is they give me a huge amount of freedom to do that. You know, I don't have anybody like the club scene was very different because you would have general managers or owners pecking on your back like a woodpecker, telling you what to play and all this, and it would always get in the way of the vibe of the room. For some reason, Top Rank's been great. They just kind of let me do what I do. You know, they know, you know, I'm going to play for the crowd that we have in the arena. So if I'm playing a little bit more Latin or reggaeton type of music, we obviously have a little bit more of a Latin crowd. If I'm playing Oasis and stuff like that, where I'm playing for a TysonFury crowd. it switches up with everybody that's there. But, yeah, my job is basically to entertain, in between the rounds.
Let's segue into the next thing. You mentioned about the playlist and just the crowd, depending on the crowds at Top Rank. You mentioned that the first fight that you DJ'd was at Madison Square Garden 13 years ago, which was the Zab Judah and Miguel Cotto fight. We know New York City in general is basically a lot of Caribbeans, a lot of Africans and Puerto Ricans. I mean, it's just a diverse melting pot. I wanted to ask you, when it comes to playlists, do you have specifics depending on where you are geographically, or again, as you said, the promoter Top Rank just gives you free reign to play what you want to play?
Top Rank has always given me free reign, which is incredibly rare in this business, but they trust me, and yeah, I basically take a look around in the arena. I see who I'm playing to. I take a look at the bout sheet. I see where the fighters are from, and then I adjust myself from there. I've always been, I've never been a one-trick pony DJ where I just play hip-hop, or I just play electronic music, or I just play rock, or anything like that. I've been a musician way before I was a DJ, and I've loved all kinds of music and appreciate all kinds of music. So adjusting like that to a different crowd is just almost like natural for me.
Fair enough. They always say that music and sports really go hand in hand, because just like the athletes need the musicians, musicians need the athletes as well. They kind of feed off of each other. It's kind of like a match made in heaven almost. I want to stay with specific playlists that you have as with your position with Top Rank Boxing. Have you had any fighters that have come up to you personally and say, hey, can you play such and such, or can you play this artist? Or did they basically, like you said, you have the free reign to just do what you do to do your job the best way you know how?
No, the fighters, I don't even think Top Rank would allow that, would allow the fighters to have any input of the music of what is happening in between. They rather trust me to get that going. But yeah, I'll tell you this though, lately ESPN has been giving me a little bit of input, and I mean, when I tell you their input has been blowing me away. They'll text me certain songs and they'll be, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? And I usually, from non-DJs, my eyes will roll in the back of my head. But these guys at ESPN have been suggesting some of the greatest music, that I didn't even think of. And, when I have somebody like that in my corner that's suggesting music, and they're nothing but really, really positive, incredible things, of course I'll go with that the whole time. When it comes to a specific fighter and their preference of music, no, I'm going to play to the crowd more than anything. That's my job. My job is to make everybody happy, to turn it into a show. And not only that, but also, let's just say we're playing in New York. I'm going to play a lot of New York type music. If we're playing in Minnesota, I'm going to make sure that, we're playing some Prince or whatever it is, just as a tribute to that city.
Okay, fair enough. And let's stay with the association with Top Rank Boxing and the current network that it's a part of, ESPN. I want to ask you, are you ever involved? I know you said as of recent, ESPN has given you a lot of creative input in terms of the what you and ESPN have bounced back and forth in terms of the musical selections. Have you been involved in the production meetings with ESPN and Top Rank, or is that something you kind of stayed away from until recent?
You know what? They have included me on certain meetings. When they want to change the way that things are looking, the way that things are going, the energy, the excitement, and the great thing about them, which I never ever saw in the club world, because the club world was really ruled by people that just thought that they knew better than everybody else. Top Rank is completely the opposite. They'll take a bunch of us and take us into a meeting and say, what do you think? You guys are on the ground floor. What do you think? What's your opinion? And they'll actually sit there and listen to our opinions, write them down, and then put them into action. I mean, they're honestly, and yes, I know they're my boss and everything like that, and they're my employer. But the fact of the matter is, I've worked for a lot of people in Vegas, but I've never worked for a company like this. They've been tremendous to work for. Very, very fair people, very kind people. They were there for me when my best friend passed. They were there for me when my dad passed. I mean, that doesn't happen, with people that you work for. But to get a call, from these people, it just shows how much that they care, and not just for you as an employee.
Yeah, that's always a blessing. They always say it's always a blessing to do what you love to do and to get paid for it, but it's even a bigger blessing where you can work for a company that really looks out for your well-being, man. That's truly a blessing within itself. Let's say again the Top Rank for a moment. BobArum, he's been doing this thing for so long. What's your relationship like with Mr. Arum?
Oh, it's not like we're best friends and do dinner or anything like that. But, he's always been the kindest of the kindest person to me, And I see how he treats everybody here. He's amazing. His stepson, Todd, is amazing also. Our CEO is incredible. I wouldn't even say that this is kind of like a job atmosphere. It's more like a family type atmosphere here.
Top Rank has been a promoter of some major fights, as you mentioned about BobArum and his son Todd have been promoting some great fights. There have been some great venues that Top Rank has been a part of, from headlining great fights at Caesar's Palace and at the MGM Grand and Madison Square Garden. Justin, tell our audience what are some of your favorite venues that you'd like to DJ, that you have loved DJing in association with Top Rank.
Okay, this one's not even close. It's in Vegas. People, please don't hate on me about this, but the energy of Madison Square Garden in New York City, you can't even come close to. It's just the energy that is created inside of that building. There's nothing like. It's absolutely amazing there. I'll tell you, another city that I was absolutely blown away by is Omaha. Omaha gets wild. They
really
crazy for Terrence Crawford. It was really like, because I was expecting one thing, like, oh boy, here we go. This is one of those flyover cities that we got to go to, Omaha, and it ended up actually being like probably one of my favorite cities to go back to all the time, and especially the energy that those people had.
Wow, we know about Madison Square Garden. They always say that it's the world's most famous arena, and it's hosted a lot of big events, and we know how New Yorkers and just that arena within itself is synonymous with boxing. But it's interesting. I would have never expected you to say Omaha. I thought you would have maybe said, of course, New York City or maybe Atlantic City or something like that. But, like you said, I watched that fight when Terrence Crawford was in Omaha. Those fans were electric there, and it seemed like a festive crowd there. Yeah. Indeed, it was electric.
Sure Omaha was your last call. I'm thinking that I would mention that, but I absolutely loved our trips to Omaha all the time, and the people there were just amazing. They really were. And electric is like the only way to describe it. They are so proud of Terrence Crawford. You can feel it. Definitely one of my favorites by far.
Are there any current projects that you're working on?
I've been working detoxing addicts with a medical doctor here, and we actually have a drug rehab here, and we're using a formula that nobody else is using in America to detox people in a virtually painless type of way. Because a lot of athletes, a lot of people, they end up getting hooked on painkillers and then they can't get off of them. And then they don't want to sit in the hospital and go through the pain of it. So I work with an anesthesiologist here, and we have a formula that we came up with that allows them to go through this in a pain-free type of way. So that takes up a lot of my time on the outside. And not only that, but it's incredibly rewarding, to see people that, with pretty broken lives turn everything around. I consider myself blessed that I'm able to do that, as a side job.
Quickly, before we let you go, Justin, if people want to connect with you, do you have, are you any social media platforms or a website? If you have that, just let them know where they can connect with you.
Of course. Instagram is TopRanksDJ.
You heard it from him. He's Justin Hoffman. He's the official DJ for Top Rank Boxing, and he's also changing the lives and helping people restore their health with the detox and also with the. I'm sorry.
That name is also Clarity Ketamine Clinic in Las Vegas.
Okay. Well, you heard it from. That's the Clarity Ketamine Clinic.
Depression.
Okay.
You never know.
Okay. Well. Absolutely, and he's also not just with doing this thing with Top Rank Boxing, but also changing the lives and restoring health once again. So he's doing big things in that department. So Justin, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us on the program.
Ed, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning into the channel. Remember to click like, share, and subscribe, and thank you for watching.